Good evening, lovely folks. Lovely to have you back again. Welcome to another stream. Hope everyone's having a good day today. I can see Patmos and Kevbot are already in chat. Lovely to see you guys. Bit sore with all the manual labour I need to do all of a sudden. Yeah, how's the decorating going, Patmos? I think that's what you said you were doing, isn't it? Been a bit dull and wet, but that suits me. Yeah, that's fair. It's been all right here today. It's been a bit overcast, but very warm with it, which is preferable to just being humid, to be honest. So I'll take that as the weather we've been having any day of the week. Today I'm going to be doing some sculpting on this model, which is something I started about 4 years ago, as you can tell by the quality of the main, not my best work. I was going to do it as a Hanoverian, which typically have very thick, wavy manes and tails. Audio is not so good. Let me just check the okay, is that better now? Is this any better? I had it on the webcam audio instead of my microphone. I've switched it now. Let's see if I can move that a bit closer. Perfect now. Oh, good. All right. Thank you for letting me know about that. I appreciate it. For some reason, I had it all set up so right to try it again, and it switched over when I pressed go live. Don't know why that happened, but thanks for catching that. Yes, this was supposed to be a Hanoverian that I started doing back in I think 2020 or 2019 possibly. Hanoverians typically are very thick wavy, quite good bad, isn't it? It's not fucking Right, is that any better? Okay, hang on a second. No, let's not do that. Hello, Anemi Wiekmans. Welcome, welcome. How are you? Is that improved slightly? It's working now. Okay, good. Right, yes. Let's hope it stays that way. I did do some work on. Hey, Lucy, welcome, welcome. How are you doing? Great to see you. Yes, as you can see, I did some work giving her a new mane about 4 years ago now, and I did a straight one first, as you can probably tell, and I hated it. So I tried going back in and doing it curly on top, since Hanoverians typically have like very thick, wavy to curly manes and tails. I'm not entirely happy with it, but there's no way in hell I'm getting all this epoxy back off again. So I'm just going to leave that as is and go back in with, excuse me, a Dremel and sandpaper at a later date and hopefully make it look a little better. But I never got around to doing the tail. This is not how I would do a tail base now. This is wire that's been glued into her butt and fastened there with epoxy attached to cardboard with hot glue on top for grip. I'm going to tell you immediately, this is not how you do a tail base. Hot glue obviously melts if it gets warm again, and card disintegrates over time. So this would not create a strong, long-lasting tail base. But because this is a model from my own collection, I'm not too worried about that because I'm not selling it to someone else. I'm not going to like throw her off the shelf. I don't need to ship or transit her. So I'm just going to continue with this tail base as is because I don't mind the shape of the tail that I've started, and I'm just going to move on with that. Fine, thanks. In the craft room myself. Oh, lovely. What are you working on tonight? Before I get on with that, though, I figured you might like to see where I got to with the mare totem that I was working on a couple of streams ago, because I gave her some mapping on a Instagram live more recently. So I've been giving her some soft markings with white watercolor pencils going around the edge of all her white markings. This is called mapping, which is basically like where the white hairs are rolling out around the edges of the markings into the dark coat texture. I really, really love the like softness that it gives white markings, especially against dark coats. It can really help break up the stark contrast between the markings and the coat. And she's also got some beautiful grey-blue eyes going on as well, which I painted, I think also mostly on Instagram live. See if I can, there we go, get the light a bit better there. I'm also working on giving her a pink muzzle, which does not have final layering done on it yet. I still want to go in with some more layers and things on that. But yes, I thought you might like to see the work that I've done on her since the last time I streamed with this particular model. And a bit later on, after I've done some sculpting, I might go in and do a little bit more on work on her this evening as well. But we'll see how it goes. She's already covered in cobwebs. The spider population in this house is ridiculous. Nice horse, thank you very much. The Lane Camargue mare resculpt and an Arabian. Oh, lovely. And a few repaints. I love Arabians. The Lion Camargue mare are very cute. You'll have to send me pictures on Instagram. Right, let's get some of this mixed. Going to wear a mask for this because I can't stand the smell of epoxy clay. I did buy some new epoxy clay recently, which came the other day. Haven't opened it yet, though. I'm going to see what, if anything, I can salvage from my old one first. As I mentioned in one of my other streams when I was doing sculpting, my hardening compound hardens on its own in a way that the part A does not. So I run out of part B before I run out of part A, which is not fantastically helpful. As you can tell on here, it's all hardened on the top. All that greeny stuff, that's unusable. So I have to dig all that out of the way and get to the stuff underneath that's still soft and malleable. I've nearly finished my tub. Oh no. It's so pricey as well, that's the problem. I get mine from a German website, which is a little cheaper than on Amazon, which I think I would always go with. Probably going to mix far too much of that, but the stuff needs using up, so not too fussed about that. Seeing you work in that clay pot is how I feel when the dentist is working in my mouth. Yeah, I can I can somewhat sympathize with that, actually. Oh, I detest having to go to the dentist. Not that I think it's anybody's hobby, don't get me wrong, but you know. If it was, I think I would have a few questions. It's not quite the same size. Let's add that on. I think that will more or less do. Is that the one people use on Instagram? I was thinking buying some from there and some WIA figures. Yes, Model Ferdesand or something. My Schleich Addiction sent me the link to it a long time ago, and that's where I always buy it from now. But I would definitely go for it. It's a lot, well, not a lot cheaper when you add postage to it, but the actual product is cheaper than it is on Amazon. And I mean, you're buying it from a small business supplier rather than an Amazon warehouse, so win-win, really, I think. There are people that enjoy pain and fear and weird stuff, so I bet there are people who enjoy going to the dentist. Yes, the deranged. Personally speaking, I think you would have to be missing a few brain cells to actually want to go to the dentist. I mean, there's nothing against my dentist. My dentist is a very nice person, but the circumstances under which one visits the dentist is never sociable. Is drying out of your clay ever a problem? Yep. Either because obviously there's part B and part A. I've gotten the wrong way around there, but you know, of this modelling compound, so you have to mix equal amounts. But the part B always hardens and the part A does not, so I run out of one before I run out of the other, which is, you know, not really very helpful. So that's one issue. And the other issue is that because it's chemically hardening rather than air drying or needing to be baked like other kinds of clay, like paper clay or polymer clay, it hardens within about 45 minutes to a point where it's no longer workable, which means I have a very limited time to work with it before I can't use it anymore. And that often means I end up wasting some clay because I have a habit of mixing far more than I actually need, unfortunately. I always wonder where in life people come up with, hey, I want to be a dentist. Couldn't tell you, mate. Couldn't tell you. You'd have to be a very peculiar brand of human to think, you know what, I want to grub about in other people's mouths all day. It doesn't appeal to me at all. Right, plan of action. I think I'm going to start by blocking out some basic shapes here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a load of clay snakes to lay down on the tail base that I can then smush and blend together into a sort of basic tail-ish shape. Obviously, when working with hair, sculpting hair details on a model, you always have to work in increments and then let things dry in between, otherwise you end up smushing what you've already done, and then you have to start all over again, which is never fun. Hey, be happy they're a dentist. Yep, that's very true. You don't have to go to the sawbones and have all your teeth pulled out anymore. Right, I'm going to start from the top and work my way down, working from the outside. Let me move my camera slightly so that you can better see what I'm going to be doing, so I don't have to hold my hands too low. Just out of curiosity, would it be possible to cut off the whole tail and then sculpt a brand new one? Cut off the model's original tail, do you mean? Yeah, a lot of people do that when they're resculpting models. I mean, this one came without one. A lot of models I buy end up not having tails because I buy models that are broken and therefore very cheap. But this one, I rebuilt her tail base from scratch. Not an advisable way to rebuild a tail, but as in like the materials that I rebuilt the tail base from, that is. But I rebuilt the base for this a long time ago before I really understood the ins and outs of the hobby, so to speak. But yes, nowadays I would do what most other customizers do and build a wire tail base. So essentially you drill holes in the model where the tail would be, and then insert wires which are then glued. Some people use super glue and baking soda as a hardener, and other people, like myself, use a 2-part epoxy resin glue. But yeah, a lot of customizers tend to redo the tails on their models when they customize them. Right, let's get some water on this so that it becomes blendable. Imagine there will be many more layers needing to go on this tail, but there's my silicone pointed tool seems to have gone walkabout, so I'm going to have to use my chisel one instead. Never mind. think realistically I need to buy myself another set of silicone tools. I do have one already, but I forgot to rinse the epoxy off them last time I used them, and unfortunately, when you forget to do that, the epoxy dries on it and then you are not getting it off again. I have tried. It sticks to everything without discrimination, and it does not relinquish its grasp. This is the other reason that I prefer using a wireframe now for all of my tails, is that it's also a lot less wobbly. I'm having to brace the back of this one with my fingers to stop it moving while I'm working. Can you just remove it with acetone from your tool? No, once it's dried, epoxy is like cement. Nothing short of power tools is going to move it. I can chip it off with my Dremel, but that works for my metal tools. But with my epoxy ones, the acetone just melts the silicone before it makes any impact on the epoxy clay, unfortunately. It'd be lovely if that worked. I use acetone for many, many things in my studio, including getting super glue off my fingers, because I do that fairly frequently, but yeah, unfortunately it does not have any impact on Apoxie Sculpt. The main reason I think epoxy is such a good choice for model horse customizing, in whatever form you choose to use that in, obviously, because Apoxie Sculpt is definitely not the only one. When I started out, I used Milliput, which is a similar form of, it's an epoxy clay like this one, but it has a much shorter drying time. You only get about 17 minutes work time with Milliput. And as Patmos has just asked, how fast will the tail dry and harden now? At the moment, it's still fairly workable. It becomes unworkable within about between 30 and 45 minutes, depending slightly on room temperature. Even though it's chemically curing, if the room temperature is warmer, it will cure faster than if the room temp is cooler, from personal experience. So I mainly only switched to using Apoxie Sculpt because I wanted the quicker work time, the longer work time that it offers. But if I'm just doing little tiny pieces and stuff, like sculpting new ears or adding like the leg wrinkles like I have done in here, as you can tell, the old mane here is very yellow compared to the white epoxy that I'm using now. This is Milliput, so it does a similar thing. Just as good, not quite as hard maybe. But I don't have as long to work with it, so it ends up looking a lot more bobbly and knobbly because I can't smooth it out in the same way. Is it completely hardened then, or just the outside layer? All of it. Because it cures by a chemical reaction through being mixed, it doesn't matter whether I get it, like obviously I get it wet, or if it's underwater or what have you, or if it's cold, or if it's too warm, it'll harden anyway. As long as you've mixed it evenly. If you've not combined the two parts equally, it won't dry all the way through. It'll be left with soft parts where it wasn't mixed properly, and you'll have to dig those out with a scoop later on in order to be able to resculpt with some properly mixed epoxy. So that's the only thing you really do have to watch out for, is that it's properly mixed. Thankfully, because the two parts are two different colours, it's fairly easy to see if it's still streaky. But with the Milliput, unfortunately, both sticks are the same colour. So I used to get it not hardening as much when I was using Milliput in the beginning, because I couldn't tell when it was fully mixed properly. You can see some tail progress here. Obviously, I'll be smoothing all of this out with a damp brush. I haven't done this side, obviously, but you can sort of see how it's coming on from the back. So it'll be that thickness again, but on the other side. And I'm actually quite happy with how this is turning out at the moment. Let's get the brush on that and smooth out some of this all of this clay dust that my tool is churning up. Honestly, this is probably my favourite part of sculpting something, is getting to smooth out all of the chewed up surface of the clay where I've been sculpting with some water, and finally seeing what I've been sculpting properly. It's like it just smooths out everything and makes it look all pretty and clean. And there we go. Let's see if I can it's not looking like it's quite focused. There we go, that's better. And that is what that bunch of clay tails turned into. Right, I'm going to have to let that side dry now, obviously, because I'll need to put the pressure on it again from the other side to sculpt that later. The nice thing with epoxy, though, is that once it's hardened to the point where you can't dent it with a nail anymore, even though I think it takes 30 hours to cure completely, but within about 4 hours, it's dry enough that you can continue working on top of it with a new layer, which is amazing, because I love it when I can get back on with a project nice and quickly. Oh, good grief, motor skills much. But I am very happy with that for a first pass with the epoxy. As you can see, something else I've done in the past in this model was introduce some creases in the inner legs. Horses have quite loose skin around their joints because they have such a long stride, so they tend to have skin creases appearing when they're in motion, and a lot of toy horses don't add those in. A lot of traditional Breyer models do, but not the classics so much. So, do I ever use heat lamps or prefer natural drying? For the epoxy clay, I mean, heat lamps won't really make a dramatic difference to how fast it dries. In fact, I prefer working with it in cooler environments because I get a longer work time with it. Just speaking for myself, I would say the difference it makes is really only a matter of between 2 and 3 minutes overall. But when you're sculpting detail, even that can make all the difference. And obviously I'll be going back in again over this with some sandpaper when it's dry. The nice thing about epoxy is that once it's dry, you can drill it, sand it, carve it, pretty much as if it was wood or concrete. But yes, I'm going to call that side of the tail done for now. As I say, I'm going to have to do some sanding, I think, in the main, and then possibly go back in and resculpt some of that because it's definitely not quite what I had in mind. I think the execution that I achieved 4 years ago is a little less refined to what I'm capable of now. I'm going to pop that there for now to cure a bit, and in the meantime, to get rid of all my sculpting tools, epoxy, put those over there for a while. I'm going to get some fresh gloves on. Otherwise, I'm going to cover Totem in epoxy, which isn't a great idea. Thank you, Patmos. That is a very good reminder. I will do that in a second. Oh, I hate getting these gloves on. They're just very slightly too small when my hands are warm, which is not overly helpful. Yes, let me just get rid of all the epoxy traces on these. I mean, with some of them, they have dried epoxy on them anyway that I'm never going to get off no matter how much I try, from several years ago. But if I can prevent any of that building up, that would be preferable. Right. Now, first of all, there is a patch on Gigi, say Gigi, Totem as I call her, where I didn't manage to do mapping right here. And that's because when I removed some of the acrylic paint, it took off the dull coat that I used on her. You can still see there's a very faint shine happening there. And her gloss coat came back through, and her gloss coat did not take the watercolor pencils, but I've since resealed her. So all of this is sealed in now, and now I can go back in with the watercolor pencil and just add back in that mapping there around that part of her marking. So it all blends nicely back into her coat. There we go, just like that. Now what I really want to focus on today is mainly her face and also her hooves. As you can see, her lower legs still need a couple of layers of white on them, but her back ones are just about ready for her hooves to be done. So as always, I'm going to start off, I think first of all, I'm just going to do a bit of work on her nose, and to do that, I'm going to mix the white again with some burnt umber. And then in order to make a more pink version of the burnt umber white mix, I'm going to add in just a tiny bit of orange. And of course, as always, I'm going to mix that using a little bit of water. Be right back, no problem, Patmos. And there you can sort of see it's formed a nice fleshy pink colour, which is what I'm going to be using for her nose. It's harder to see on camera than it is in real life, but her nose is... I've already done some pink work on it, but because the dark brown of her original paint is still showing through a bit, it looks muddy, so I'm just going to go back in with this fresh coat and build up some layers so that it becomes opaque and starts looking more like bare skin than streaked paint. As usual, I'm keeping my paint very thin to eliminate brush strokes, especially because this pink indicates bare skin as opposed to hair, and I don't want it to look like there are necessarily hair details in the end of her muzzle, so I want to keep that paint quite thin. So that it'll level itself out and eliminate my brush strokes as much as possible. Do you experiment finding the colours you use as opposed to just standard ones? Yes, always. I don't think I use any colour straight out of the bottle these days except black. And that's usually for mane and tail hair detailing and for the pupils in my eyes when I do horses' eyes. But for the most part, I prefer to mix my own colours, especially because I feel like it's more varied and natural that way, and a lot of colours that come straight out of a bottle aren't typically within the natural range of colours you would find on a horse. While acrylics do come in quite a wide range of shades of brown and like yellows, reds, etc., that you can use on a horse. Vallejo has quite a nice range of earthy colours that look good on models. I still mix my own to meet specific needs for specific models. especially because using colour straight out of a bottle, even if it looks like the right colour, one thing to bear in mind is that acrylic will always dry 2 shades darker than it looks wet. So always paint lighter than the colour that you actually want it to be, because it will then dry to the darkness that you want. And also it creates a more rich colour when you tint it to your own specifications. Just going to add a little more pink tinting around Totem's eye here. Really helps to bring the eyes to life, especially when they have blue or grey eyes. The skin around them, not every time, but a lot of the time, is pink as opposed to black, which I personally like. I feel it makes eyes look more striking. When the eye is a pale colour, if the skin around it is pink or white. Obviously, Totem here has both. But pale eyes on a dark coated model are very definitely one of my favourite combinations to put into a custom. It's looking good. Might just put a little bit of pinking into the inner ear, give it a little bit of depth and dimension. Obviously horses don't have bald skin inside their ears, but the skin is typically thinner on the inside of ears, which the pink that I'm putting in here helps make the hair look like it's thinner than it is on the back of the ear, which is plain white. Not difficult. It's very difficult, sorry, to see the colour contrast on camera because the lighting in here is unfortunately not great. I do have a desk lamp up at the moment, but because it's causing a direct downlight, it unfortunately doesn't always give the desired effect. I'm just going to mix some of that burnt umber white without any of the orange in it, so that I can solidify the white markings on her front legs. And then once they are solid, I will be able to start on her hooves. What plans do people have for the week? Anything interesting? I'm going to be viewing a house tomorrow on my quest to get my own place. No idea how that will go, but hopefully well. Got a driving lesson planned later this week as well. keeping up with those. Plan to hopefully be on the road by the end of this year or the beginning of next year. Back watching and listening and ripping some cardboard boxes. They came pick up these paper bin Fridays, not to get these in. Ah, yeah. Better get the bins out. No excuses for not getting the bins out. Sorry, I was also sculpting while listening, getting through till Thursday, then child-free weekend number 2. Nice. No need to apologise, you have fun sculpting. It's definitely not easy to chat when you have epoxy all over your hands. I can attest to that. Never any obligation to chat. It's absolutely lovely enough that you are here watching and listening and spending some time with me today. I appreciate that, as always. Also looking into getting a new Wi-Fi repeater for the studio so that I'll be able to start doing streams down there. I think I mentioned a while ago in one of my other streams that I bought one and it turned out to not be compatible with our Wi-Fi router. So I had to send it back, and I looked into getting another one, but I ended up completely forgetting about it for quite a while. But I've found another one that I'm getting, and hopefully this one will be compatible. It has better reviews than the last one that I tried, and with any luck, in a couple of streams' time, I might be streaming to you from my actual studio rather than the house, which would be amazing because I have all of my tools and things easily on hand down there in a way that I don't here. Body Shot, hello, hello, good morning, welcome. How nice to see you. How are you doing? And then a little bit on the inside there, I think. I'm not going to do too much on the inside of that one. And then this one, and then the legs should be done, and I can move on to the hooves. Just heading off to work, wanted to pop in before we go. It's lovely to see you as always. I hope you have a good day at work, and thank you for stopping by. Shall hopefully see you again on another stream somewhere, sometime, very soon. Have a wonderful rest of your day. so much ground to cover on a model this size, which is crazy. I mean, it's just well, it's a small horse by human standards, I suppose, but I realise how big she is till I'm actually working on her. Needs a bit more on the inside of that leg. I will at some point as well be going back in over the top of this paint with some pink and brown tone pastels, which I'll be putting into all of the creases where the muscles are to add some definition and make them look more three-dimensional than the plain white. Which I'm looking forward to. Pastels always make everything pop in a way that paint does not. For me anyway, everybody has their own techniques, of course, and for some people just acrylics work, for other people oils work, oil paints. But for me personally, I tend to do my finishing touches at the end of my paint jobs with pastels. Nearly missed the back of that leg. Why is it so easy to forget that models have tummies and the backs of their legs, honestly? Ridiculous. Right. Oops. Let's just throw the camera around, shall we? Now I'm just going to mix up a darker shade of the burnt umber, which I'm going to use as a foundation layer for the front hooves. I'm going to add a tiny little bit of the orange into that as well, just to give it a bit of warmth. And I'm going to put that down on the hooves that have white legs, and I'm going to do a grey hoof on the dark leg. Hoof colour is not always dictated by the colour of the hair that's growing near it, but in a lot of cases it is. And I love doing different coloured hooves on my horses. It adds just another level of detail, a bit of visual interest. This will form a base layer for the hooves, but I will be going in to do the actual hoof detailing in another layer using watercolor pencils. I love using watercolor pencils to detail hooves. It provides just a real pop of realism, and it also gives me control in a way that I don't have with a paintbrush. Let's not forget the backs of the hooves. And I will probably also do a little bit of don't know if you can hear that, but Mishka the Malamute is talking downstairs. Say Malamute, Huskamute. Can softly hear Mishka. Yeah, she's woodling away downstairs. It's so funny. She's so talkative. It's like having an extra furry little human being in the house sometimes. It's adorable. This is forming a very, very nice base coat colour. I really love this sort of biscoffy colour for hooves, especially when I do them on Appaloosas, because then I add stripes to them. I love stripy hooves. Striped hooves are quite typical of Appaloosas. You also can get stripes on hooves if there's a darker colour in the hair on the foot where it joins the hoof, but they are more typical in Appaloosas. Right, there's 2 coats of that, and now I am going to go back in using the lighter version and build up a little bit of the colour here in the mane. Still got a bit of that pink mixed into it to give it some warmth. I never use stark white on my models unless, as I said before, they are like a show model that's been washed and shampooed and it doesn't tend to look as natural. I tend to find going in with the sort of dark cream colour tends to look better for doing whites and manes. Again, though, that does depend on the main coat colour of the model that I'm working on. Oh, I will, Lucy, I will. Oh, my days, she's so talkative. Hey, Fire Lion! Great to see you. How are you doing today? Just popping in to say hi because I've got a premiere soon. No worries, lovely to see you. Anxious but good. Ah, well, I'm sure there's nothing to be anxious about, really. I shall send vibes of confidence your way, my friend. Do apologise, I keep forgetting there is a camera there again. It's a voice reveal, that's why I'm anxious. Ah, yes, I can understand that. I had the same thing when I first started my YouTube channel. The first video I did, I was like, everyone's gonna know what I sound like now. But I can assure you that everything will be absolutely okay. You will do amazing. And you will get used to it very quickly, I can promise you that. I thought in the beginning it would never get any easier having people hear what I sounded like, and these days I barely even think about it. Right, now that I've done that, and her hoof tips seem to be dry enough to put her back on the floor. I'm going to mix a bit of grey to do that other back hoof. Never my favourite thing to do. Getting black paint out is always a risky thing to do because black paint will get everywhere if you give it the opportunity. It does not care for boundaries. And I'm going to mix a very light dove grey, which I'm going to use for her black sock. Keeping the paint very thin as always, so that as it builds up, the brush strokes won't show. And not forgetting the back of the hoof. I will also be detailing the underside of her hooves at a later date, but I'm not going to do that until the rest of her is complete and I can turn her upside down. I have to go for now. We'll check if you're still on when I'm done. Thanks for a nice stream. Keep up your amazing crafting work. Thank you, Patmos. It's been great having you here. I probably won't be going for too much longer, but have a great rest of your evening, and of course I will see you again on one of your next streams, presumably. But yeah, it's been absolutely lovely having you here again. There we go. I think that's a good base for that hoof. And of course, on this one as well, I will be going in with watercolor pencils and pastels at a later date to add some texture, depth, and darker lines to all the hooves. It's going to need probably more layers than the light ones did because I'm putting light onto dark instead of dark onto light. And while I wait for that coat, excuse me, to dry, I am going to go back in with the Biscoff colour and put the next layer on the front hooves. Here you can see what I mean when I say that acrylic goes on 2 shades lighter than it dries. This is exactly the same colour that I put on the hooves last time, but you can see how much lighter that looks while it's wet, as opposed to the dried layer underneath it. The difference is insane. So this is what I mean when I say that colour matching acrylic can be quite tricky, because you have to colour match it to be 2 shades lighter than the dried colour that you're trying to match, which is sometimes almost impossible. Sometimes I'll be sitting there mixing colours for ages and I cannot make it look the same when it's dry. I ended up spilling over onto the leg a little bit with that one, but that's all right. I can go back in with white and touch that up later on. Switch back to the grey. Looking at how that's dried, I might just add in a tiny touch more black, I think, for this one. Get a slight bit more of a stone grey than a concrete grey, I think. Just adds a bit of warmth to it. There we go, I like that better. the hoof colour now is starting to come together. And the next time you see Totem, I will probably have detailed those. I will seal them first, however, otherwise drawing on them with the watercolour pencils will bring the paint back off if it's not sealed, because acrylic paint comes off if you scratch it if it's not sealed. And I don't want that. Just rinse that, and then I'm going to go back in with my detailing brush, and I'm just going to use plain black here and go over the black parts in her mane with that. This is always more nerve-wracking than painting the white, because if I go wrong, it's a lot harder to cover up than it is if I go wrong with white over the black. Apologise, I'm being extremely quiet at the moment. I'm having to concentrate quite hard on this particular bit. There we go. And now this side, which is infinitely easier because it is the outside of the mane as opposed to the inside. I will probably also end up blending the black and the white sections of the mane together with some grey back and forth blending. Otherwise, I find the colours can tend to look a bit too stark, and when hair is moving all the time, of course, it blends together. So I find it can look a bit more natural when the hair is blended. But that again is something that I will do after I've sealed this particular layer. I wish I had your painting patience. Yeah, well, I mean, some days I barely have it, mate, to be honest. Especially when I'm painting hair, because I can go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth over the same part again and again and again, and it's still not doing what I want it to do, and I am just about ready to throw the model across the room sometimes, and then I have to put it down, take a deep breath, go and do something else for half an hour, and then come back to it with a different mindset. I think that's something that most artists probably contend with at some point. It does sound exhausting. Yep. When I tell you the amount of grief I had trying to do snow globes, Maine, yeah, she nearly drove me to distraction. I mean, the results are pretty, but gosh, did they give me a hard time of it? She's a diva. She is. Right. Yeah, I mean, she's still hands down probably one of my favourite customs that I've ever done. Is Snow Globe. I think she'll always be one of my favourite customs I ever did. Just doing some herring details here at the base of her tail. Tail, I think, is going to stay black. I don't think I'll be putting any colour in her tail. She could best around top Frisian mare. New stalking you till you're done was a good idea. Oh man. Couldn't have asked for a better home for her. She is amazing in your collection because I know she is going to be very, very loved for a very long time. What I'm doing here is a bit of that grey blending I mentioned before between the black and white parts of the mane and tail. And I said I wasn't going to do that without sealing it, but sometimes it works better wet into wet. I don't actually always typically use acrylics for this particular step. I often do this bit using pastels mixed with water. Which I will probably do on top of this at some point, but for now this forms a good foundation for where that's going to be. That pupil has gotten some white smudged on top of it. Don't like that. Going to fix that. There we go. Now it looks like she can see again. And there we go. That's what I'm going to do on her for today. You can see she's got her eyes done. Her nose is more solid now. She's got some colour going on in her hooves. And the part of her I couldn't map before now has mapping on it. I'm very happy with that. So she needs to be sealed again now. And we can take another look at this tail now that the gloss has worn off as the water has dried. This is reached the point now where it's unsculptable. It's really started curing now. But I'm very happy with how this side of the tail is looking. I can't wait to do the other side. And of course, I will be posting updates on this model as well as all the others I work on Instagram. So if you follow me over there, or you would like to go and follow me over there, the link to my Instagram is in my channel description. Then you can keep up to date with all of my projects and work in progresses over there. And of course, I will also be doing some sanding and stuff to try and make the best of this mane that I sculpted way back when. So I'm going to call that the stream. And thank you all so much for being here. As always, it means so much to me that you take some of your precious time to come and spend with me here in the studio. And I hope that you've had a good time. I certainly have. And I will see you all hopefully next week, same time. So until then, I will say thank you for watching and bye-bye.